Force on Force features the largest and strongest outdoor military organization in the country. These are the men and women who make it possible to enjoy the freedom to hunt and fish. It is with great pride that we bring you Force on Force podcast, coming to you from the Force on Force Talk.
Hey, welcome to the Force on Force podcast. We're here in the Force on Force Talk. I'm your host, Shawn Dalrymple. We're back here. We had an exciting episode last week. We talked to Brent Hill and Matt Picard talking about season 14 and their championship. We thought we would tell you the other side of the story. We're going to bring in Mike Schnupp this week. How's it going, Mike?
Yeah, it's going good, man. How are you?
We had you on earlier in the year, and then you kind of hinted about season 14, but we wanted to kind of let you come on and tell the painful part of being. I guess we can say that now. The painful part of being the bridesmaids 2 years in a row, right?
Yeah, 2 years in a row.
So, but before we kind of started out, I mean, it was a good season, wasn't it? A lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot of fun. I mean, hats off to Brett and Matt. I mean, they caught them. I mean, we were on fish. No excuses. We made some moves and some things, and we thought we did what we thought would be best to give us the chance, and it just wasn't our turn. I mean, it's just I've been in 5 of these shows and been the bridesmaid 3 of the 5 times, and it sucks and it hurts every time. I mean, I still think about it. I mean, I think that's just the competitor in me. I hate losing, and especially when Matt and I gave ourselves the best chance to win. It just makes it tough. But I mean, overall, it was a good show. Everybody was, it was just good camaraderie, just good competition, and yeah, I mean, it's Florida and 80 degrees. It was cold when we got there and warmed up, and so it just made for a fun week.
So I guess this one is probably, you talk about 3 times you've been there, but this is the one where you probably have the most experience, the most knowledge going into it than anybody else there.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I grew up and lived right there in Central Florida. But when I was stationed there, it's when I really, really fished a ton. But I fished Harris chain like 99% of the time. It's 15 minutes from the house, so I'd rather go there than fight Orlando traffic and drive like 45 minutes to Toho or Kissimmee. So in all actuality, I've only fished Toho, Kissimmee chain. No joke. I know people aren't gonna believe me. Less than 5 times.
I bet you wish you fished it more now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wish I could the effort, into it, but I mean, Florida, Florida fishing is Florida fishing, but it's funny because every chain has their own like uniqueness to it.
Right.
They have everything's different, but a lot of things are the same. If that makes sense. As everybody knows, I think it was in the show as well, but Matt and I practiced. I mean, we had a practice as crazy as we talked about on the last episode, but that I was on. But we got up to Toho, and I was like, let's go there first. That's the furthest point away. Let's go. And we get up there and we start fishing some different areas, and we fished the lock first before we went up. And I caught one and Matt caught one, and we caught them pretty quick. And I was like, okay, Matt, like they're here. The water was moving. They normally have the rope, to where like further back, so you can't even access those fish that we actually caught during the show. And we caught, like I said, 2 real quick. Went up to the lock, fished a little bit, found this spawning flat, and I mean, I kid you not, we probably caught 5 fish in about 10, 11 casts, and we're like, okay, that's it, we're done. So we had that as like our honey hole, and then we got another half day of practice, and we went to to Kissimmee, and I fished some areas that looked really well. Didn't really like it. Found an area that, I caught one probably second cast on the chatterbait, and there was a guy there. It looked like he was flipping mats, but he was crappie fishing. But
Yeah.
I refused to throw that chatterbait again because I didn't want anybody to see it. I know it sounds silly, but nobody was in that spot except for crappie fishermen, and I didn't want anybody, you know, to, more to get out. Maybe that there's, they're pulling up in that little flat.
You know, Brent might have alluded to you being super secretive in the last podcast.
Yeah. Well, uh, he was too, but I mean, Brent and I talked. I mean, we kind of, well, I mean, we were doing the exact same thing. If you watch the show, I mean, we're both
Yeah.
throwing chatterbaits. He was throwing white. I was throwing a green pumpkin purple. It's just Matt tried a white one and he ended up catching one on it. But well, I just had confidence in what I was throwing.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, the area where Matt in the championship round, where well Matt and Brett fished in the championship round, we had that spot marked. And the to kind of backtrack, when we started the championship round, we went to our spot, and it really doesn't show it per se in the episode, but like two casts in, I caught that one that was like a little over 2 pounds,
Right.
and about 5 to 7 casts later, I caught that one that was almost 5.
Right.
So I know I was a little fired up in the in the show, but I mean I was pumped. I mean you got almost 7 pounds and 2 fish in the first 5 minutes of the championship round. I mean, I was pumped. And then Matt caught one a few minutes later, and while Matt was unhooking his, I had one come off. I lost one, and I don't think it helped or hurt. Would have helped or hurt us either way. But the bite shut down, and talking with Brent, his shut down too. It just shut down for like an hour, hour and a half, and Matt and I were going to go over to where Brent was. I didn't know Brent was there, and we're getting ready to look and go over there, and we look and I see Brent's boat, and I was like, oh crap, we can't go there. It was a spot that we had marked that was good, but the spot we were on was just equally as good. But like I said, the bite shut down, so we were like, man, let's go make the run back up to that lock, because we were going back and forth to both spots
Right.
throughout throughout the show, and we decided to go up there because the previous two show episodes, previous 2 days of filming or whatever, every time we went to that lock, we caught a 3 pounder.
Yeah.
And so we're like, man, let's go. Well, when we got out there in the championship round, we caught 3 or 4, we caught several, but 3 or 4, you know, keepers or whatever you want to call it, or help fishing would help us. And none of them I don't think, were over 2 pounds. Maybe one was,
Yeah.
and And, the thing that's not shown in the episode either is, we leave Camp Mac and we ran to our spot in Kissimmee. That's like a 15-minute run.
Right.
And then from Camp Mac to the lock is about 25-30 minute run for us.
Yeah.
So if you do the math, the day we went, the championship round, we went to Kissimmee, it's 15 minutes, and then it's like 45 minutes ish, maybe a little bit longer from our spot in Kissimmee back to the lock, and then another 25-30 minutes back. So we probably killed about an hour and a half of our fishing time, at least every episode.
And that's tough,
And yeah. And, the fact that Brent and Matt stayed there and they had that same hour and a half, just wall of no fish bite. Like they just shut down, and then it picked back up for them. So, that's just one of those things that goes back and forth in my head. It's like, man, should we have stayed there and rided it out or rode it out, excuse me, or did we make the right move and go to the lock? And it just wasn't our time. And it's something, like I said, the competitor in me, it'll eat me alive, and I'll go back and forth. I mean,
Yeah, I
like I
think
said,
it's a tough call because I mean, I guess my question to you is, did it ever worry you? Because that dam area, it's, when we talk about fishing, it doesn't kind of lend itself traditionally to a spot that maybe could reload itself, right? where
Yeah.
that place that you originally starts on, I mean, it's a place that you figure that fish are probably coming to it. Did you ever just think about that and you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, so to backtrack
because
on day one.
I'll just tell you, man, because knowing what you guys caught in the semifinal round, that was like a concern that I mean, because I'm sitting back, I know what's going on, right? Like I know like who's caught what.
Yeah.
And part of me, like I strategically did this. I didn't really like when we did I would say who won. I didn't typically say the way because I didn't want the word to kind of get out who had what, right? Because I wanted
Yeah.
there to be people kind of guessing what it was, right?
Yeah.
Not the viewers, because viewers are going to see people, but your competitors that you're going to go against the next round, because everybody's around there and they can kind of see and whatever, right? But then I'm thinking, man, you guys caught 13 something in the semifinals, and your competitors caught nothing, and you didn't have to catch 13. And so I'm thinking,
Yeah.
man, did they
Yeah. I
burn?
think you even mentioned that in the talk. Like, hey,
Yeah,
let's see if you guys burned your stuff. And
yeah, and then I know that's a thought process. Does that do you think about that at all? Does that concern you? Because I now because you're talking to a guy like me who the first time I ever won it, I mean, I think I still have like the longest run time in Force on Force history. I mean, we were making an hour and 15-minute run one way. So I mean, when you're committed to that, you're committed to it. So
yeah, no, honestly, I don't think it ever got into our heads. We're like, dude, what if we ran through these fish? Because that semifinal round, we went to the lock first
right,
and we caught a 3 and I don't remember else, like we had like a pound and a half, 2 pounder or something like that. So we had 3 fish. We had 3 fish, 3 solid fish. And, you know, we were catching, I mean, as you saw, like, I mean, we were catching the mess out of crappie and I mean, just giant crappie and all this stuff. So, and we felt confident where it's like, all right, let's go run the Kissimmee and see what's going on down there, whatever. So we went there and it was like, couple casts in, boom, there's one, another cast, there's one. I was like, all right, we're done. So I mean, I think I caught 3 or I caught 2 and Matt caught 1. I don't remember exactly, but like it was like within 5 minutes we had three keepers.
yeah,
And so we both looked at each other and was like, all right, man, we got over 12 or whatever it was. I was like, let's just go looking for other areas. Like we basically went practicing. So in my mind, and in Matt's mind, we left the fish biting. You know, Now could you play devil's advocate and say, well, man, if we didn't catch those 3, if we'd have just not fished but obviously we didn't know if they had any fish or not, and you want to give yourself the best chance to win. But obviously, if we would have known that they didn't have anything, we probably would have left that spot alone after the first fish.
right,
Um, but but at the same time, I mean, I when we went back out for the championship, there was no doubt in my mind that those fish were going to be there and they were going to bite, and they did. And they clearly did. Like I said, it just had that lull, and did we maybe pull the plug a little too early and run to the lock? Maybe, but I mean, that's what we were doing the whole show, and just confidence going back and forth, you know, because in the first round, you, you can kind of tell in the first round, we were, we went to Kissimmee because the whole Toho thing was out the window. So we're like, well, let's go to Kissimmee because we had bites that were really quick
yeah,
in that spot that we were fishing. So we went there, and, it's the first, I personally think the first round in Force on Force is the hardest round to win.
yeah. Because if you don't, because if you don't like bring it, you're not making it to the second round.
Yeah,
Um,
you have to get through the first
yeah,
and all the added stress that goes along with that.
yeah.
And so
You
Matt and I, like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's the other piece of it. Like, you can go out in the semifinals or the finals, but you don't want to go out in in the first round. That's a
Yeah,
long drive home.
yeah, yeah. So if you look back on the first round, which you can kind of see in camera when I watched the episode back, is Matt and I were like burning that chatterbait. I
Yeah,
mean, I was spinning that reel faster than I could even think. And that's not how they wanted it. They wanted it kind of slow,
Yeah.
and we weren't
Or
even thinking about that. We were
or
just going.
or if you were gonna do that, you needed a Brent kinda thought you needed a heavier chatterbait so that it made up for you reeling it fast to get caught in the grass,
Yeah.
I think there's
Oh
two
yeah, but
y'all
we
were
were just burning it.
y'all were throwing what y'all were throwing a 3/8, I think is what y'all
Yeah.
were and that 3/8 burning it just got it going too fast as part of it.
Yeah, and but we weren't even thinking about it that way.
Yeah.
We were just so amped up trying to get the first fish in the boat. And so we were there and it wasn't working clearly. And so Matt, I was like, Matt, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And he's like, man, I don't know. He's like, there's tons of fish here. I was like, I understand. I was like, but we're not really getting bit. And he's like, all right. I was like, let's give it a little bit longer. So we start fishing, a little bit longer and just nothing happened. And that's when we just called the audible and, swung to the fence and went all the way back up to that lock and made that run. And, we pull up there and, I think the first fish was like a 2 pounder, next one was like a 3 and, whatever else it was. And, I think we had like 6, almost 7 pounds that first round. And, you know, Rick and Chris zeroed. I mean, they just lost fish. I mean, if you watch the episode,
Yeah.
obviously you can see that. But once we got that first fish in the boat, it was that big sigh of relief.
It's
like, okay.
Yeah, it's tough because yeah, man, that first time I fished force on force and we made that run and man, we didn't catch them for I think for maybe like the first 30 minutes, maybe 15 to 30 minutes, and you start spinning, man. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that 30 minutes feels like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Especially like, when you make those runs and you commit to something. I mean, you had what, 4.5 hours to fish?
Yeah.
I think Matt and I, the most time we had to fish was like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. It's not long.
No, it's not long at all. And, but it seemed to be all the right moves. And maybe in the championship round it wasn't. I don't know. Like I said, normally when it's your time and things go right. And, I thought it was ours the way when we pulled up. But, it is what it is. Like I said, hats off to them. They got it done. Brent and Matt are both great guys. It's one of those things, like I said, a competitor, I always want to win, right? Last year, Matt and I practiced together. We shared stuff together, and he won. And did it suck? Absolutely. But it's a lot easier. I mean, that's one of my best friends, and I mean, he's a heck of an angler. And, so I was excited for him to win.
Yeah.
This year we got paired together, and in both of our minds, and I think, some of the competitors' minds, they're like, oh crap, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because Matt and I fish well together. It's just, we fished one of the first, second East Coast tournaments together, and we won. And we won without a trolling motor. The
Yeah.
trolling motor died at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we just fired up the motor and fished and covered water, and then we won another one in Gunnersville and Big Bass and something else. I don't remember, but it's just we fish well together. We our styles complement each other, and so when you announced that we weren't allowed to lock the toe, I was devastated. But then it was like, hey, you're pairing up with Matt, and I was like, oh well, we'll make something work,
Yeah.
And
Well,
so it
I think it was a good pairing, but at the same time, I think you talk about this year to last year. I think, last year you weren't on the fish like you were this year. And so,
yeah.
that,
Last year, I mean, Matt had us share them.
yeah.
And of course the cold front. So like the bites were far few in between, and you had to capitalize on them. And
Yeah.
in the championship round, I lost probably could have been the winning fish. I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to say like, oh man, it was a 5. It's pretty sure it was a 3 pounder and it would have won, but you don't know. I mean, it's still swimming and it never got brought to the scale. So, but like you said, I mean, this year there was a lot more fish to be caught versus last year. It's just, I think there have been more, and I think there have been bigger fish, if that cold front didn't come in right before, like right as we were getting there.
Yeah, but that's typical Florida fishing that time of year. I mean, you talk about the things that each place fishes unique, but there's some things that are consistent throughout Florida. And that consistency is Florida string largemouth when cold fronts come through in that January, February timeframe. They do not like that. They're not like I love we talk about places to go potentially that time of year to fish fortune forest. And I love talking to the guys, and they're like we mentioned a couple of different locations, like maybe Garden Shoals come up or some places like that, and the guys are like, "Oh man, with the weather," I'm like, "You guys don't realize, like I've caught some of my biggest bags in January, February, in those
Well,
lakes,
I
but
mean,
because those fish." They're different than those Florida string largemouth down there, you know. They don't act the
yeah,
same as Florida string largemouth when the water gets or when the cold fronts come through, you know.
no, 100%. I mean, I fished the batch open there in Harris Chain, and it was January or February, and the cold front come in, but the cold front was there for a while.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like a 2, 3 days and then it's gone. It was there for like a week. So these fish had time to kind of stabilize a little. You
yeah.
still had to work hard to catch them, but I mean, you know, you had to be doing the right thing. I mean, it's just you could go out there and throw a with this crankbait and chatterbait and a worm and all the Florida staples and not get bit because you had to fish it a certain way, in order to get bit. And it took us about 2 days, 3 days of practice to figure that out. And, it ended up working out. I ended up finishing. Yeah, my buddy Destin Demarion, who I practiced with in the opens and stuff like that. And I mean, he had a top 20, and that was the year. It's 2019. That was the year he qualified for the elites.
Yeah.
And so, it was just it's just a, it's kind of a timing thing. It's kind of a technique thing when it comes down to this forest way when they get cold. And,
Yeah, and that
but like,
it just depends on, how it's unique to go down there that time of year. It can be feast or famine depending on we actually the irony of it was like I think if we were tracking that time frame, we were the only ones who really caught a good strain of weather to be down there like during that time. Like Bass went down there, MLF was down there. They all caught like bad weather when they were down there. We catch the
oh,
warming trend of it, which is kind of good. Yeah, the guys talk about driving through snow to get down there, but I mean, it was
yeah,
like 80 degrees all week long. We were down there after that,
yeah. I
the
mean,
we did it. We're
I,
down there.
I've never seen snow that far south.
Yeah.
When Matt and I were driving in, I mean, we're at the, Georgia Florida border, and there's snow on the ground. I'm like, what in the heck is this? I've been stationed in Atlanta and seen snow in Atlanta and in South Carolina, and stuff like that, where places where they don't get a lot of snow, but they'll get it. But, Florida, it was like, it was just, you know, it's just mind blowing that it was still snow on the ground in Florida, you
Yeah.
know.
And I think that's that just goes to show that how well you guys kind of dissected it down, and both you and Matt and then Brent and Matt Picard, y'all really figured it out because of the tough conditions that had happened and realized that. I know we talked with Brent about this, like, they chose to fish in the morning the first day. Like, how much did that like bother you guys to have to fish in the afternoon the first day?
A lot, a lot, to be honest. You know, we, the days of practice, in the morning, we just didn't have the bites. If we weren't getting bites in the morning. And so, as soon as they said morning, I was like, oh my gosh. Obviously they said afternoon to them, morning to us. And I was like, I was frustrated, and Matt's like, dude, don't worry about it. We got this, and it was just kind of funny. Like I said, we work well together. I'd be frustrated, and he'd be like, "Oh, dude, don't worry about it. This, that, the other." Then he gets frustrated, and I'm there, kind of cheering him on, type thing. And
Yeah.
but that I'm not gonna lie, that kind of messed with our mindset a little bit because you know again we went out in that first round, went to Kissimmee, made that run. We're all you know fired up, trying to make it through. Adrenaline's going. 1,000 miles an hour, and we get to our spot and we're there for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours, and not a bite. And so, that'll mess with you in the back of the mind, like, man, like, are we not going to catch them now because we were catching them in the afternoon? Like, all these different things go through your head, and that's when it's like we just got to make a change. We got to make that run.
Yeah.
And and could we have stayed where we were at and possibly caught him if we slowed down or something? But I'm pretty sure we would have. But I think the importance of it, and like for me, this is going to sound weird, but like the mental side of it, it was something to give our brain something else to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was something like, hey, let's change it up. Like, let's do this. And so in our minds, we're focusing on getting to the lock, how we're going to break it down, how we're going to fish it. And that changed it for us. And then, we obviously caught a few, and so we had some confidence. So when we went back out, the next day or whatever it was for the semifinal.
Well, y'all got a 15-minute head start in the semifinals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tried, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was in the episode, but we tried to convince Ty that he could have, he could start the normal time.
Yeah.
His normal time if he would let us lock the tail.
Yeah. Yeah. I know y'all trying to roll the dice. But the irony of that was y'all had a fish in the boat before they ever launched, I think. So that was kind of funny in that aspect. I mean, that's how big a difference it was. I mean, y'all caught a fish. They don't know that, but I mean, from a confidence builder, I mean, they're already frustrated because they got to sit there 15 minutes and a penalty box, and then you guys are already got a fish in the boat, a keeper fish. So
yeah, no, I mean it, and Ty, I mean, Ty's a heck of a fisherman.
yeah,
I'm not gonna, sit there and say that, all these guys, we're military guys and whatever, but like the pro staff, I mean, even some of the coalition, like, I mean, there's some errors on this. So, this year's show, I mean, you had, you had guys, I mean, Steve, he was stationed in Florida. He fished Toho and Kissimmee all the time. So that's in the back of the competitor's mind, think about playing. Steve knows the lake pretty well. Rick, I mean, Rick lives there.
yeah,
Rick fishes that lake all the time. So, you have those guys, but like I said, though, back to Ty, I mean, Ty's a heck of a fisherman, and you know, he he was on some good fish, and I mean, he knew what he was doing, and it was like, oh man, like I personally think, that penalty kind of messed him up a little bit mentally.
yeah. It does. It can, when you start thinking and you start pressing, but that's what we're after to do is like to replicate. Like we talked about it with Brent and Matt, is like
Yeah.
try to replicate that stress we do in training, sticks lanes, things like that, to replicate that decision-making process. And you kind of alluded to it, like, do you second guess, like making that run? Cause that's the thought process. We do that all the time in the military in our lives. It's that decision-making process. You go to the military decision-making process, right?
Oh,
And so we use that on the water. I mean, spent a lot of time with Marty Stone up at Fort Bragg, and he talked about that in the years I was up there with him, that he always was just amazed at how well military guys process information and how quickly they make decisions. But in some cases, that might actually work against you. You start overthinking things. But that's also why we put people in those situations to see what they would do,
yeah, no, and I mean, like you said, Matt and I had to adapt over the whole Toho thing. It, 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 I mean, adapt and overcome. That's kind of what's ingrained in our heads, and something that I kind of went by is lead, follow, or get out of the way, right? So you either make the decision, or you follow me, or you get out of the way and just, but the thing, with that, like you said, is being able to adjust on the fly. I mean, that's fishing itself, but that military lifestyle's ingrained. I mean, you have to sometimes make split decisions, and it doesn't just affect you. It
Yeah.
affects, hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and that's just, that's part of it. And, like I said, this year, I think there's a lot of cool things that happened during the show and different competition things and different things that played out. And I think I think it made the show a lot. I mean, the show's already a great show, but it made it a lot,
Yeah.
a lot more interesting and more kind of edge of the seat
I know there
type
was,
thing.
I know there was kind of some preconceived notions that you mentioned Steve being from down there that I think for what he does, his style of fishing, I think he was about 3 days off from what it needed to
Yeah,
be. Because I'll tell you, I went back out. I got to go fishing Saturday on Kissimmee, and that was the same time there was the big high school tournament, and
yeah,
the chatterbait bite was actually not working. The individuals that actually won the tournament was they did it on that speed worm, and I would tell you that was all that I caught fish on was that speed worm. That's why I say but that was because it warmed so much on that Friday. Remember?
yeah. Well,
When
and that's my favorite thing to fish in Florida.
Yeah,
My favorite.
so when you go in there that preconceived notion, oh man, this because I remember everybody telling me, oh, I got to get the speed worms, I got to get the speed worms, I got to get the speed worms. But I thought it was kind of funny because Monster Bass comes on being a big partner of ours, and then that happens to be what they're giving away in the box that month is that jackhammer chatterbait, right? And that's what
Yeah,
and that's what you and Matt and then Brent and Matt Picard, that's what y'all catch the majority. I think all the fish pretty much came on most of that presentation, at least in the
yeah,
Kissimmee part. It was pretty ironic that that's what played into it, not the speed worm, But it was a
yeah. I
difference in
mean,
that 3 days.
like, we obviously, you know, Strike King was no longer our sponsor, and they make the cutter worm, which is kind of
Yeah,
their version of a speed worm, and it's a great worm. It's a great bait, but for me, I like the actual speed worm better.
right.
And so when the news broke before, like before the show, I was like, oh man, I can use a speed worm. I was like, Matt, like I've got plenty of speed worms. Don't worry about buying any, this, that, the other. And because obviously I live down there, and I mean I had bags upon bags for
Right.
living here. I don't fish one here.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty fired up. And then we get there, and I'm trying to make a speed worm work. I'm trying to force feed it to work,
And it
and
ain't
I
working,
completely
man.
didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
It's
And
not
so
it's not working that particular days.
yeah, it wasn't during that time, but once it warmed up, you
Yeah.
know,
That made I was just it made the whole difference in like 3 or 4 days because we were back out there in the same area that Brent was in, and they didn't want the chatterbait. I could see him on the active target, and if they were throwing a speed worm, just started whacking them, right? And then come to find out the individual who won the tournament, that's what they because there was a high school tournament
yeah.
going on there, and so I went over there and just supporting those kids that were there, and me and the tournament director had been chatting, and just listening to that's what like the top five backs were like speedworm. It was
Oh
funny.
yeah.
I was like,
I,
well, I was
yeah.
like, Steve, you're like 3 days too early, man.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is, Brent, Brent was using active target to,
Yeah,
to locate the grass clumps and stuff like that. And we were using it in Kissimmee. Now at the Toho lock, we were kind of fishing areas.
right.
But I mean, it was a huge help because you'd sit there and you'd pull up to those grass mops and you'd see, I mean, when I say hundreds, I mean hundreds of crappie
Yeah,
in those mats and in that grass. But then you would just see this bigger fish swim in and then back out.
right.
Swim, they were just getting ready to move in, and
Yeah.
we were seeing that, and that's what kind of helped us.
That same
It's
thing
like,
that
okay,
I saw on Saturday when I was out there. I saw that same thing. You would see them swimming,
yeah,
bigger fish swimming, and sure enough, that's where you would catch them in and around those lily pad with hydrilla clumps on them, but it was just the presentation was different on that day,
yeah,
and I just thought it's just funny that I get to laughing because all the preconceived notions going down there. Everybody was really worried about Steve going into it.
yeah.
with all his knowledge of that and his love to throw the speed worm, right? And you think with it being colder, you think that would be a better presentation, but that's not the way it works typically, you know?
Yeah.
They wanted that chatterbait.
Yeah, which is, normally, Florida, but like I said, we were kind of at the tail end of the front. But normally when you get that, that front first kill in, I mean, you have to fish painfully slow. I mean, they're
Yeah.
basically dead sticking a Cinco, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
but no, like I said, overall, I think it was a great show. You know,
A lot of
hate
good,
losing.
yeah, a lot of good stuff. We had some good military moments we were able to do for this TV show. You know, got to do
Yeah,
some
then
stuff.
you had the PBA thing.
Yeah, the PVA thing. That's all like some very first. You know, and I think I asked Brenton. I mean, I know you guys didn't win, but like this is the first time we involved like the residents of Camp Mac. We had them there for the finals when you guys came back in. How was that? That was a lot different, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was kind of, it was kind of one of those things where, you know, at least this is how it felt for me. They weren't, which I think it was cool from the sense they weren't there to see, you know, basically who caught the biggest fish or who won. They were there just to support, you know, us,
Yeah,
like and being veterans and I thought it was really cool, man. I mean, like, the show that you can only show so much in the time frame you have, but to kind of put it in perspective, I mean, dude, I mean they were it felt like when I first came home from a deployment, they were
yeah,
all out there cheering and screaming and just super appreciative of us. The fishing aspect of it and being able to see who won was just kind of a bonus to them, in my opinion.
yeah. I think that's really important. That's why we kind of it was kind of something different. We wanted to share because we always say that what we do is completely different than pretty much anybody else in the industry, and like we represent a lot of not it's not so much an individual, but an idea of kind of what you put it in is like the things that we go and do and come back and the experiences we have and the ability to appreciate the things that we get to do back here. That I say this all the time, like, man, you realize that people get to chase a green fish around because of things that we go do, you know?
Yeah,
And so it's an idea, right? And so they're celebrating the idea of of us, meaning the military, the soldiers, airmen, sailors, marines, you know.
yeah, even the Coast Guard.
Yeah, and the Coast Guard, and didn't mean to leave you out there, Ryan, our sole Coast Guard guy that was part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
show. So, oh,
Still love you, dude.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But I think that
but
the idea of that whole thing sometimes we forget because we've just done it so much, and so that's what really the show is about celebrating all of us. When I say us, the services
services,
as a big deal because we're the 1%, the 1% that go do something the other 99% of the population never had gone done and traded our life to go do it. So that's what's kind of cool to be able to share that backside of the story and to see that and the I guess that's probably when you do win it. I sort of it's kind of overwhelming because it's not just you winning. It's almost like a thing that representing everybody and everything you've ever served with that's part of you when you do it, you know?
yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, Brent and Matt did their thing, and you know, Brent's a heck of a guy, and so is Matt, and I'm happy for them. Obviously, I hate to lose, but I'm happy for them, and I mean, they deserved it, and they're good champions, and they handle themselves in professional manners, and I mean, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, at the end of the day, we all represent, our branches. We also represent Belmy Batching as a whole,
Yeah.
and what the organization is and what it represents, and they get to defend their title, next season, and you, they're great role models of the organization and what it's about, and for that aspect of it, I'm excited for them, and excited for next year. I don't even I don't even, obviously we don't know who's fishing and how it all breaks down, but I don't know. Like I'm kind of
You,
tired of being a bridesmaid.
I got like 6 months to think about it. So you never know what I can come up with 6, 7 months,
Oh, I know.
you know,
I know.
so. But as we wrap this up, a couple of things. We got the Skeeters Owners Tournament coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be exciting. We'll be in Chattanooga at a show, also a new show we're doing. But we always love doing a Skeeters Owners Tournament. It's a great time if you're a Skeeter boat owner, which, you know, Mike, you got a new Skeeter coming in. Hopefully
Yeah.
we get it this week, and then it'll be pretty exciting. So big
Yeah.
po-
And I got a buddy here that's, he was talking, he was in the Marines and,
yeah,
uh, we met through baseball. His son and my son played ball together and he was talking to me about, he just got a Skeeter a couple months ago.
yeah,
And he was like, oh, I mean, what about that Skeeter owners tournament? I've never
yeah.
done it. I said, well, I never fished it. I said, but I've worked them. And I said, dude, if, his son, like I said, my son's age, and I was like, man, if you can do it,
It's
I would definitely do it. So they're heading out next week, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
next week,
they'll head out next week. It's the 6th, I think.
six.
Registration 6th is the registration. I may be off on my dates, but like it's that Thursday and Friday's registration, and then Saturday, Sunday is the tournament. Big fish style tournament. A lot of fun stuff goes on. They give away a lot of stuff. Everybody tries to get the duck prizes, and
And and those
yeah,
things are, I mean, we're not talking just like a little door prize. Here's a
yeah,
$20 gift card. Like we're talking trolling motors,
yeah,
graphs, like
yeah.
all kinds of fish.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
So
It's pretty good stuff. And then they do a big cookout down there. Now, what's really cool is we do a cookout for all the vendors and the Skeeter team on Friday night and the Skeeter pros. So that's always a fun deal that we took over that responsibility last year. We went away for a couple of years, and we'll be back doing it this year. And so we're always excited to do, because that's kind of a time for us to get together with the Skeeter family and everything that we do, and say thank you for supporting us, what we do on Force on Force, and just all the vendors that make the owners tournament happen. But I'm like Mike, if you got a Skeeter boat and you're on the fence about coming out there, it's really a family event, so you can't miss
it
it.
is. I mean, I hate that I'm not making. I think next year, depending on baseball schedules,
Yeah,
uh, I think next year, my son and I, we might just go down there and just fish it.
yeah,
Like I said, I've worked them and had a ton of fun working them, but I mean, it's just a huge event. I mean, the food's great, the people are great. It's just all around to me. It's just a great, like you said, it's family fun. I mean, there's families there. I mean, Chris and the Skeeter team do a great job, of putting this event on. I know it stresses them out because, Chris wants to make sure everything's done the right way and, and make sure his team's on it. And you know, every year I think it just gets better and better.
yeah. Just hopefully we don't have any tornadoes this year, because last year the tornado tore down the tent, and they had to reset it back up and like
Yeah.
overnight, and it was a whole like. Thankfully, we hadn't even taken our trailer down there, so thankfully that we held off a day and doing it. So we're excited about that, and going to be some cool stuff. We'll have all the stuff there from our great sponsors, motor mates on site, different stuff. Be able to demo some of our stuff on our skier boat, from so you can look at our precision sonar stuff to the leash and you name it. We'll have the Dakota batteries set up there to take a look at. I got
You guys doing the drawing too, or the
Yeah, we'll do a drawing.
what is
We'll have a raffle. We're graph that we're raffling off, and a couple of guns that we're still raffling off. So it's all good stuff. That goes to support what we do. We're the nonprofit stuff. The foundation piece of it helps Fishing for Freedom along the way. So a lot of great stuff.
yeah, I mean, even with the kids, go back to the kids, they have the tournament. Obviously, you got adults
Yeah,
competing. It's credit, but for the kids, they have what is the biggest under, and they have different like they have their own tournament within themselves.
yeah. The kids compete against themselves. They give out prizes for the kids. They even have the females. They have the female angler division too.
Yeah,
Compete in, and then they do. And the adults, they have the biggest over, and then they have the biggest under for it. So
yeah. I think years past, the biggest over has been a new Skeeter.
yeah, it is.
Uh,
It's like a
And then,
FXR 20 usually, and then
yeah, and then the other one was like a side by side or something.
yeah, it's usually a side by
Pretty
side.
decent.
It depends on. One year it was a Skeeter 150. It was, but that was a
Yeah, it was.
75th year anniversary. But they also give away a Yamaha four wheeler as part of the toy drive that they do. That they give away every
Yeah.
year to the kids. So everybody donates a toy, gets a chance to win that Yamaha. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, you're getting toys to help kids, and then you end up winning a
Yeah,
nice toy.
they fill up that big old Skeeter offshore boat up there at the front, and then every year at Christmas they give those toys out to needy kids there in East Texas. So it's a cool deal to be a part of all that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So excited. Hey, Mike, thanks for sharing the other side of the story from Force on Force. I know it can be kind of painful, but I think it's good to see both sides of it and share from your perspective how it all went down. Hey, if you want to know more about Army bass hunters, buck, duck, hog, or redfish, go to forceonforcetv.com, and we appreciate it. Cool.
Thanks for listening to the Force on Force podcast. Join us next time as we dive into more topics from the Force on Force talk. For more information or to learn how to join the organization, visit our website at forceonforcetv.com.